Hello dear fellows, I'm Evil Punk, and this is F1 2019 on the Xbox One. And I've seen people asking for help with Monaco. So I decided to put in the best lap that I can and then do my best to break it down and explain how I get around Monaco. So it's going to be a clean lap. I'm hoping by watching this video you're going to gain the tools to learn to get around Monaco yourself, putting in clean laps. So to start with, down the straight, obviously you're flat out, and right around the 50-meter distance marker is where I start to brake. It's about 75 meters, I'd say, is where I start braking. And you can turn in while you're braking. I will put in the full lap with telemetry, the live lap, so you can see when I'm braking. You'll see the telemetry, but you can turn in while you're braking. Just be careful not to lock up, because you will slide into the wall in front of you if you do lock up. So the margin for error in this track is extremely difficult, and if you follow F1 in real life, you know how notoriously difficult it is to overtake on this track. A couple of good examples of that are David Coulthard, I believe it was 2002 or 2003, qualified on pole position, and on the formation lap I think his car stalled. He had some sort of problem where after the formation lap he had to start from the back of the grid, and he was pole sitter, but because he was in the back he struggled to get by anybody. He was stuck behind it was an Arrow's car. I don't recall who it was, but anyway, it's a notoriously difficult track to overtake on. It's not impossible. The Formula 1 channel on YouTube has an entire video dedicated to Max Verstappen overtaking at this track. But anyway, it's around 70 meters. I start to brake, and then you can turn in under braking. Just be careful not to lock up, or you will slide into that wall. Looking at this now, I'm not entirely sure how this lap was valid. It should have been invalidated by going over this curb, but you can see by the tire marks on the ground at the racing line, you do put two wheels over the curb. This is a little bit excessive. Not entirely sure. I guess I got lucky, but it looks like just part of the wheel is still on the track. So two wheels do go over this apex. That's the racing line. I was a little bit excessive with it in this example, so you have to be really careful or you will get warnings and penalties. And so this is in time trial, so the corner cutting is strict by default. So this, like I said, is a little bit excessive. Once you start feeling the car come back under grip, you're going to go flat out up this hill. It's almost a straight line. Almost. There's a little bit of steering. If you're having to steer, weave back and forth, you're probably not on the line, because it is a flat out. You're going to be going up that hill as fast as you possibly can. And then this corner, it is a hard left. And what I mean by hard left is you're going to be turning in pretty much as hard as you can. If you're turning in hard and hitting the wall, you're probably coming through the turn too slow. If you're turning in hard and you're hitting the outside wall, then you're going too fast, obviously. So this is a tricky corner to figure out the right speed to come through at. So it is possible to come through without having to correct your steering. Here you see I did have to correct the steering just a tiny bit. But generally for this corner, you don't really start braking until you start the turn. And even then, you're mostly coasting through the corner and just touching the brake when you need to avoid hitting the wall and keep the car turning inwards. So this is a high-speed, left-hand, hard turn corner. And you do kind of want to touch that inside apex. Almost, but be careful not to hit it. And if you're coming in too slow and you realize that you're turning in too hard, you could always give the car some gas to get it to come out a little bit wider. But be careful about doing that, because obviously too much gas, you may spin the car or fly into the outside wall. So again, you're braking kind of as you're starting to turn in. So you're flat out until about the point you start to turn in. And then this tiny little straight, if you come through it as fast as you possibly can, more often than not, you could just coast up to the next turn. And you may need to touch the brake as you're coming around the corner, but sometimes you do need to give it a shot of gas to get just that little bit of extra speed to make it around this corner. Because for any of these corners, if you're turning in too tight, then you're coming up to them too slow or slowing down too much. And the opposite is true if you're going too fast. You will not turn in tight enough and hit a wall. So again, if I'm turning in as hard as I can and I hit that inside wall, I'm going too slow. And if I turn in as hard as I can and I hit the outside wall, then I'm going too fast. So this is sort of the same as the last corner. If you're going the appropriate speed, you'll be turning in pretty well as hard as you can and you won't be hitting the walls. So that is kind of a good rule of thumb. If you're turning in as hard as you can, then you're going about the right speed. So again, too slow, you're going to get oversteer. Too fast, you're going to get understeer. So on the exit of this turn 2, if you're coming through quick enough, you may be able to just coast up to turn 3. But in this little straight section, it may be the case where you need to give it a shot of acceleration just before you get to the turn. And this is a track that is really instinctive. So sometimes when I'm coming around this turn, I'm still coasting and I don't even have to touch the brake and I only gear down. But sometimes I'm coming in quick enough where I do need to just quickly stab the brake for like a split second just to slow down enough that I'm not hitting the outside wall on the exit. So this is a super instinctive track, because if you're focused too much on any one thing, you're sort of increasing your chances on making a mistake. So turning in as hard as I can, you can see the car is sliding to the left slightly. I would say that's a good indication that I'm coming through at probably the fastest speed I possibly can. And then this little downhill section, I like to come to the right, and if you're playing career mode, you'll see that the AI do the same thing. I do it to keep the wheels planted so that the car is transmitting the power to the ground rather than spinning the wheels. Because if you hit these bumps, it's possible to jump the car just enough that the rear wheels will start to spin, and you'll either hiccup or spin completely. So there's little bumps there on the left, I stay to the right of those and then come back over to the left once I'm past them. So from the exit, that kind of looks like this. And then there's that white board there on the guardrail on the left hand side. That's what I try to use for my braking point. It's really difficult to see, so more often than not I'm just looking at the corner on the right hand side and feeling it out. So I don't always use that bright panel on the wall, but I will sort of try to be aware of where it is. So there are two ways you can do it. You can find a marker, and for me it's that bright section, that bright panel on the wall, or I will sometimes just feel out the corner and start braking. And the same goes for this corner. If I brake too early, I know that I either need to coast or give it some gas, because I'll turn in too sharp. And it's better to brake a little bit too early than too late, because obviously you're going to hit the wall if you brake too late. So again, that bright panel there on the wall, that's kind of what I use for a reference when I'm using one. But like I said earlier, the track is very instinctive, so more often than not I'll just keep my eye on the corner, and you sort of start to learn the braking points just by looking at how far you are from the corner. But references are good to have, so try to find one that's good for you. And then turning in as hard as you can for this corner. Sometimes it's better to start the turn in second gear and then coast until you've lost enough speed to gear down into first. And then when the car comes back to grip, you go sort of flat out for maybe a second or two. It's something that's going to come to you over time. And then I aim for that green patch there of the road on the right hand side, so that I'm giving myself as wide a turn as I possibly can. And be careful about hitting the curb on the inside of this turn, because if you go over it too much, you'll slide off of it on the exit, and more likely than not, you'll hit the wall on the outside if you ride that curb. So do your best to stay off of that curb. So again, I'm aiming for the green patch road on the right hand side before I turn in. And then I'm giving it a shot of acceleration here too. I'm only for about a second. You'll see it in the telemetry. So I'm hitting the gas and then coasting around the corner when the car's got enough speed. And then same thing again for this corner. You're going to notice that's a pretty big pattern on this track. You're hitting the gas and then coasting through the next corner. So I'm punching the gas here again and then coasting, and I'll only brake if I need to. So if you're getting this corner right, more often than not, you'll just be coasting right through to the exit when you go back, until you go back onto the power. So it'll be hard acceleration until probably about this point, and then coasting through the turn. And then when the car comes back under grip, you go full onto acceleration. Don't jab the accelerator unless you've got traction control on, but you're sort of easing onto the accelerator until you can feel the car is under grip again, and then you're going flat out through the tunnel. So this is what that looks like when you get it right. And then for the tunnel section, you're just staying to the left-hand side until this turn comes up. You'll see that little white island there on the right-hand side, on the inside of the corner. That's kind of my reference. So I'm staying to the left, and then I'll turn over those little islands on the right-hand side. And then the racing line sort of drifts back over to the left, but you can stay to the right-hand side if you want to. So it's coming through, staying on the left-hand side, meeting the inside of the turn, and then drifting back to the outside. And then for this turn, I brake usually just after the 100 meter mark, so right about here is where I would start braking. And then turning in. Sometimes you'll get in this corner through in second gear, but more often than not, you're going to be exiting in first. So you can come through the corner in second or first gear, but I always exit in first gear just to give me that extra torque to accelerate just that little bit faster. And when you're turning in, you'll see where the tire marks are on the ground. That's the racing line, and then the racing line does put your wheels over the apex of the first corner. And then I accelerate about here and then meet the outside wall. So when you're turning in, it is really, really close to this inside corner here. I have caught my rear wheel on that corner quite a number of times, so it's something that you're going to have to feel out and you'll start to get used to over time. So my braking zone is right after the 100 meter mark, turning in hard and just barely missing that first corner, and accelerating right around this point, I would say. Once I can straighten the wheels out, I'm back on the accelerator, but I do have to turn a little bit slightly to the left, but that's okay. The car can still accelerate under that little bit of turning. And then for this turn, I'll hit the brake and usually gear down to fourth. You can come through this in fifth, but I feel more comfortable in fourth. So it's around the 50 meter mark, maybe even just before it. I think on this lap I braked just before the 50 meter mark, and you're kind of aiming for the inside corner. So you can see the wheels are sliding. I'm sliding to the outside, so I was aiming for the corner, and it looks like I'm going to hit it, but the car is sliding out to the right. That's something that's really, really tricky to get. So it's better to go, well, to get this corner, you kind of have to aim for this inside corner. And that's setting you up for the next turn. Because the turn after this, you're going flat out through the next corner. So I'm aiming for that inside corner, and then drifting to the outside. This is all flat out from this point here. It's all, well, you might coast until you get past this corner, but then it's flat out. So aiming for the inside corner, drifting to the outside, and it's flat out. You're staying to the right, and then again you're aiming for the inside corner and just trusting that the car is going to drift away from it to get as much speed through this section as you can. So staying on the outside, and you'll see that the steering wheel is still slightly turned throughout the entire section, so at no point I've ever straightened the wheel out through this set of turns. So the wheel's slightly turned. It's all completely flat out, and you'll see it in the telemetry when I show the full lap. And you can't go over this apex. It's really easy to get a warning or a penalty riding over that apex. This was a valid lap, so you can put 2 wheels over it, but it's easier than it seems to accidentally put the whole car over that apex and get a penalty. So be careful about this apex on the outside on the right. Well, the inside rather. So this apex here. Be careful about putting the car over that because you will get a penalty. So after that corner, flat out, aiming for the inside corner again. Be careful of the apex, and then you're going to the outside and slowing down to about 4th gear. Again, aiming for the inside corner. The racing line is, I believe you put 2 wheels over that apex. I missed it here, but the turn is still good. 2 wheels over the apex again. Drifting to the outside. Only so, cause I'm going to be moving back to the left-hand side of the track, but I'm drifting over to the right only because I'm accelerating. And then you'll drift back over to the left, still while under acceleration. So ideally you would touch that apex with your 2 inside wheels, and then the next one as well. This is a tricky corner because it's really, really easy to slide into the outside wall right at this point. So once you feel the car under grip, you start accelerating again and go flat out, only for like a couple of seconds. And then you're going to start braking in. And I don't exactly have a braking point reference for this turn. I kind of go by feeling, honestly. Well, actually the reference I have is, excuse me, when I see that next corner is when I start braking. So I'm in 5th gear. I reach 5th, and as soon as I see that corner is when I hit the brake, and you'll see it again in the telemetry. And then for the final corner, it's the same as the first sector. So after I make this turn, I'm stabbing the accelerator, of course, ease onto it to keep the car under traction and under grip, and then just punching the throttle quickly for only about a second or 2, and then coasting through the final turn. This is a tricky turn as well. And this is one where you're not really aiming for the inside. This is really hard. You're aiming for the inside corner, but it's not like the previous turns where it feels like you're going to touch them. This one, you're aiming to get the wheels just over that inside apex. And then once you're straightened out, of course, you can go flat out again. This is what it looks like. Up to speed. Stabbing the gas, coasting through. Car straightens out. Hit your DRS and you're flat out again. So I hope that all helps. I will put in the full lap with the telemetry, so that'll be appearing now. So I hope it helps. And here's the full, I hope the breakdown helps, sorry, but here's the full lap now. Alright, that's all folks. I hope this video helped. Feel free to share your strategies and techniques down below. Let me know if you liked the video, let me know if you didn't, and I will see you next time.